What's up, Packer fans? I'm Nariah Chapik, host of Former Packers podcast. And Green Bay just came off of their bye week, which means they have 8 more games to define the 2024 season. It all starts with the Chicago Bears on Sunday. We're going to break that game down. We're going to give some thoughts on the upcoming season or the rest of the season. And we'll even touch upon what happened to the Detroit Lions a few weeks ago. We have to talk about it. So grab yourself a drink. It is time to pour ourselves another Packers podcast. All right. It is time to get things back flowing because we took our own personal bye week last week.
Yeah, welcome back.
It feels a little bit strange. I kind of forgot how to do this. It was only a week off, but kind of forgot how to do this. Kind of forgot how to get the flow together. We started with training camp and did every single week up until last week. Election happened. I think we all were just kind of overwhelmed with just life in general and just needed a little bit of a breather ourselves. So
here we are.
And in this particular episode, I think what I want to do, because last week what the plan was to kind of not only talk about the Detroit game, but also give our thoughts on the rest of the season, maybe where the state of the Packers are currently throughout the season. I do want to touch on some of that. I want to touch on Detroit a little bit. It seems like so long ago, and I forgot so much about that. I think I just locked it away in my brain, and I don't really want to talk about it, but we'll talk about it. And then, of course, it's Bears week, and that's always a fun time.
Bears week.
Who better? I guess, yeah. Even before that, I can see your eyes. Like, normally, this whole episode, and no, don't do it. Don't put them on.
I can't do it. I can't do it. Those are the victory shades.
So let's start off with early prediction right now. Spoiler alert. Well, let's start off with the Detroit Lions game. So that matchup, week and a half ago, 2 weeks, whenever you watch this, Packers lose that one. They drop it 14-24. A little bit of a sloppy outing for sure by the Green Bay Packers. It was a freaking monsoon in that game, which one thing that maybe we should get a little bit better of, maybe I'll take ownership of this, is to look at the weather forecast for the upcoming week, because that did not play into any of our keys to victory, any into our strategies, the score predictions. It kind of felt like
you could say that my key to victory was turnovers, right? So
yeah,
in a rain game like that, turnovers are extra important because there's going to be a lot of them.
Well, maybe the key of victory should have been snapping the ball to Jordan Love and shotgun and not fumbling it. Yeah. But both you and I took the Packers to lose against Detroit, and we record these on Tuesday nights. And I think Friday, Saturday morning, we reached out. And I'm like, I kind of feel like the Packers might have a shot. And then Sunday morning, I was feeling really good. I'm like, I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to beat Detroit. And didn't work out, obviously. But why didn't it work out? What is your week and a half rationale, time to process, thoughts on what happened?
Yeah, I'm gonna start out and apologize to all the Packers fans out there. It is my fault. It's my fault that the Packers lost. So on that Sunday, obviously it was a afternoon game. So I had time to do some laundry and, kind of get prepared, choose what specific Packers gear I was going to wear. And I have a newer pair of Packer socks that I totally plan to wear. One of them, I think the dog took it or something, so it had to run through the wash that afternoon.
Okay.
And right before I left to go watch the game at my parents' place, I checked the dryer and that sock was not dry. So I had to wear my old Packer socks that have holes in them, just like the Packers game did that Sunday. So I take responsibility for this loss. You can berate me in the comments. I apologize publicly. So that's what happened. That's the reason.
To be fair, all the Packers socks were soaking wet too during the game, so you should have just wore the.
I should have wore the wet socks. Should have done it.
That would have been the
been the key. Yeah, I don't know, man. That Packers game was very frustrating. You talk about the monsoon that happened. It was pouring rain, but it only seemed like the Packers had a hard time holding on to the ball. You mentioned the bad snaps from the center. And I mean, a little bit of that's on Jordan Love, but was it Brady that was commentating? Right. Yep. He pointed out that the snap was going right towards Love's left knee, which is his non-dominant side. He has to reach across his body and down. And so I don't put all that blame on Love, but overall the Packers just played sloppy. That pick six is the difference maker.
It is.
The defense still played fairly decent. If they don't have that pick six, it's, a close game at the end. So
yeah,
it was just a rough game all around.
Up until that pick six, I was thinking, okay, Matt LaFleur lost us this game, or was losing us the game at that point. It was some interesting play calling, not really aggressive, and I'm going to really get a home run comment and thoughts on that particular thing. But that pick six definitely killed us. You have to keep in mind that Josh Myers, Packers starting center, was out. So that Elton Jenkins snapping the ball, that doesn't help things a whole lot. Jair was out. Evan Williams was a late, last minute scratch as well. Not to say that they don't have depth behind that with Bullard, the other rookie, back there, but it was 6 drops on the receiving side. They seemed to convert. I think that for the most part, I'm kind of sick of saying this, but they were their own worst enemy once again. Yeah. And if that pick six doesn't happen, now it's a 14-17 game, and all you have to do is march down the field and kick a field goal inside. There's just so many different variables, but it was definitely frustrating. But I'll let you get one more thought if you have one, and then I really want to maybe open this up to a bigger conversation regarding Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to mention was, so it was obvious throughout that game that Jordan Love still was not healthy. Obviously, he was dealing with that groin injury now, that it was a question mark if he was going to play or not. It was obvious that he wasn't completely over that injury, and the field conditions probably didn't help that. I mean, that's pretty evident. I mean, the slippery field, a groin injury it's hard to, when you're sliding around, it's hard not to tweak a groin injury. So health was a concern. I mean, I don't want it to come across as an excuse for the poor play or the poor decision making, but that it definitely was a factor, right? So it limited what Jordan Love could do, his mobility in the pocket, limited play calling possibly. So that was another factor in this one. It was a frustrating game to watch. I did not have fun watching that Packer game.
Yeah, even though, again, like we predicted, they weren't quite clicking right. They were going to come into that game probably going to lose. We both felt pretty confident that was going to be a tough one to be able to come out and win. It was still what stuck with me the most is how they lost and why they after the game ended. Okay, they lost. Not okay. Sucks. I saw it coming. But I want to talk about Matt LaFleur. We give this guy a lot of credit now, especially when Love went out weeks 2 and 3, and the game plans that he put together. Great play calling, great coaching, being able to get Malik Willis into situations to succeed and win some football games. But my takeaway specifically in the first half, but then it lingered after that pick six into the second half, is I'm really starting to see this conservative play calling and lack of aggression from Matt LaFleur in these big time games. We saw it first pop up in the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, where we're within the 10-yard line. It's 4th down. We opt for a field goal rather than going for it. And that was kind of the end of that game. We were never able to get the ball back. Game over, yada, yada. The Packers had a couple different opportunities where they're on Detroit's side of the field. It's crappy weather conditions. They had a 4th and 8. They do that stupid fake hut delay of game and choose to punt it versus trying to just go for it. And who cares if the Detroit gets the ball at the 40-yard line? Let's move on and just play some defense. But then they did it again with 5:50 left in the second quarter, either second quarter or second half. And they opted to kick a 46-yard field goal in this windy, weather-ridden game. And it's maddening because you saw Dan Campbell go for it on 4th down and 4th and goal, very first opportunity in the game, they convert that touchdown. I think I won't even say it. I don't quite remember how many offensive touchdowns they had, but is there a bigger cause for concern? As much as we love Matt LaFleur, and I think he's one of the brighter minds of the young coaching tree, I feel like he really needs to start getting a little bit more aggressive, specifically in these bigger games, and take some risks and trust that his defense can back him up if the offense doesn't succeed, and try to go for some of these. Maybe I play too much Madden. I don't. To be truthful, I don't play a whole lot of Madden. I usually, that's the facts of it, but I'm seeing the risk takers in the NFL are the ones that tend to come out on top 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I don't see a cause for concern necessarily. I still have faith that he's a top of the league coaching mind. I think he still has that in him. The conservative play calling. So in the past, you talk about the Bucks game, back then there definitely was a question mark with the defense, right? It was, do we really trust our defense to be able to stop them if we don't convert this 4th down? This year, it's very evident that this defense does have that capability for the offense to take those risks. However, it's the first year that Matt LaFleur has this elite defense that he can do that with. So I can understand where he may still be a little hesitant to take those risks. And I'm going to get into it a little bit more, what my opinion is on what they did with this bye week and what the rest of the season is going to hold. But I think this bye week was a good timing for the bye week because of things like this. Matt LaFleur's play calling was very conservative. And I just talked about the Jordan Love injury and how that may have played a factor in the conservative play calling. He knows his starting quarterback is limited. He knows the field conditions are terrible. I can see how that game specifically in that situation, he felt like he needed to be more conservative. But there were other situations that with play calls that they didn't make any sense to me. I mean, there was one at one point, I really don't remember when it was in the game.
But they had one in the 4th quarter, down 24-6, 3rd and 1, Jordan Love pass incomplete to Wicks, and then 4th and 1, Jacobs up the middle, no gain on the Detroit 9-yard line.
That sounds right. And in my mind, the pass play on 3rd down, I mean, it's 3rd and 1, you try to run the ball first, and if that doesn't work and you're going to go for it on 4th down, then you throw the ball. Like, just it seemed backwards to me. So stuff like that was happening throughout the game with the play calling.
I'm sick of seeing 3rd and 1 and we're taking 30-yard shots down the field.
Right. That's got to stop.
It's not just the Packers either. I've watched some other football too along the way, and other teams I think they're trying to catch them off guard, whatever the case may be. I'm of the mindset, just keep the 1st down.
Yeah.
Just please keep the drive alive and keep it going. They got a jail card, I think, once on Sunday against the Lions where they were able to convert on it. It was like a fantastic catch. Was it Bo Melton that made the catch? This is the tough part about having this game a week and a half ago. I don't quite remember. Yeah. But regardless, if Matt has any blind spots in his coaching, I would say that's probably it for me, is he just needs to, and maybe with the defense, maybe that he has a defense now, he can be a little bit more aggressive and take some risks and take some chances. But I'd almost argue the opposite. If you don't have a defense, you kind of need to score points, and you're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive then too. So what's the right answer? I'm not exactly sure, but I would like to see, I don't know. We're only had 3 losses this year, but I'm already getting sick of the Matt LaFleur post-game conference where he's like, I got to do better. It's on me. I got to coach better. It's like, yeah, you do. You need to coach better. Let's now go do it. I'm kind of sick of the apology tour is where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, in games like the Lions game, I like to see him take accountability for it. But there have been other times where he said that where he's just taken the fall, right? We all know that it wasn't necessarily his play calling that lost the game in other situations. There's there's other things that have been questionable with this season so far.
Well, on that point, we transitioned from the week 9 matchup against Detroit, go into the bye week. So the Packers enter the bye week or come out of the bye week, I guess, at this point. 6-3, their losses against Philadelphia, Minnesota, and Detroit. All 3 teams that are in our top 10 power rankings and have pretty much stayed there. Outside of Philly, who stumbled a little bit early on the season, but these teams have remained there and stayed there throughout the season. Last year through week 10, Packers were 3-6. They went on a run. They finished their last 8 games 6-2, made the playoffs. They got hot at the right time. So a few things that I would say that kind of sum up the first half of the season that can make differences in the second half. Injuries is a thing that we need to discuss. Jordan Love has not been healthy. That bye week, to your point, I think does come at a good time where Love kind of struggle bust his way out there on the field. I hope to see him come back and be a little bit more mobile and confident in his leg and his throwing ability. Marshawn Lloyd is now expected to return from injured reserve. So that's another running back threat that you and I have been super excited to see throughout since they drafted him back in April. So he might get some playing time on the field. Devontae Wyatt suffered injuries, Jair Alexander, Corey Valentine, and Evan Williams, the most recent offender, amongst others who dealt with some tweaks and stuff throughout the season. So it's been, we've kind of faced a little bit of an injury bug, nothing detrimental. Well, I mean, losing your starting quarterback is pretty detrimental, but they were able to get through it. There's the past. You want to say something in regards to looking ahead and maybe how this bye week comes at the perfect time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've been talking to friends and coworkers and stuff about the way this season has gone so far, and I've just had this feeling that all these games week in and week out that you and I are sitting here talking about, the poor decision making, the injuries, the struggles that we're getting kind of frustrated with what we're seeing out of this Packers team because we had such high expectations for them to start the season. And I've just had this gut feeling that this bye week, I feel like Matt LaFleur and this team were able to take the most advantage of this bye week coming at the perfect time to get guys healthy. You just went through the injury list. This bye week is going to help with that. To get their mind right, talking specifically about Jordan Love. We know about the poor decision making, and he'd have a week where he took steps forward and made some better decisions, but then he'd take a step back. So I feel like that was hopefully a main point in this bye week for Jordan Love to kind of reset, reevaluate, get his mind right so that he can make some better decisions moving forward through the season. Re-strategizing. We talked a lot about Matt LaFleur, the conservative play calling, our frustrations with some of that. I feel like this bye week was used for Matt to re-strategize, come up with some new game plans, come up with some new ideas to take even better advantage of the weapons that he has on this offense. And lastly, I feel like looking at the rest of this schedule, there are some tough teams on the schedule. You got another matchup against the Vikings. You got another matchup against the Lions. Obviously, those are probably the two most important ones. But I think it was last week, I just kind of looked at the matchups for the whole rest of the season for the Packers. And I honestly think they can win every single one of those games. If they took this bye week to get healthy, to reset, to re-strategize, and they come out looking like this dominant elite team that we hoped and expected them to be to start the season, I think they can win out the rest of the season. I honestly do. So that's my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents about how I think this bye week came at the perfect time, and hopefully they used it to their advantage, and we see, this dominant team come back in week 11.
Well, and to your point, like 6-3 is a pretty good record through 10 weeks of the season. And it just seems like it's underperforming to the fact that Minnesota is 7-2, Detroit is 8-1. We're in a really tough division, and you can't really misstep anywhere along the lines or along the way. And the problem is that our 2 losses came to those 2 teams that are ahead of us in that division. So to your point, this team, I'm with you. I think they're they feel like they're right there. They're on the cusp of getting their game together, their mind together, be able to put some good performances out there, making a run, and on the rest of the season. I hope so. I mean, that's to win your final 8 games. That almost worries me subconsciously for whatever reason heading into the playoffs. Almost like you're too hot. Like you might need to take a slice of humble pie somewhere along the way before you get to the playoffs. I mean, we all know that the hottest teams entering the playoffs tend to be the best ones to move deep and make a Super Bowl run. But the next 8 games, let's just get into that real quick before we move to clearly we play Chicago on Sunday, and then home game against San Francisco. That is a 325 America's game of the week. Thursday night on Thanksgiving night against the Miami Dolphins. Another Thursday night at Detroit, Seattle, New Orleans, and then a rematch against Minnesota in week 17, and then a to be determined closeout game against the Bears. I mean, they got some good teams coming up here. I think they can definitely get everything trending in the right direction, but that Chicago matchup's a huge opportunity to get things flowing. It's not a team that's playing very well right now. You get that San Francisco rematch at Lambeau, where San Francisco's been kind of our Achilles heel. They've knocked us out of the playoffs for like the last decade. So that would be a nice momentum boost. And then Miami on a Thursday night primetime game of Thanksgiving. The Dolphins with Tua is a whole different team than they are without him. They're competitive. They are fighting. They had a great win on Monday night when they played. I believe they played Monday night, right? So
Yep.
You got those 3 matchups before you have to go to Detroit and have that rematch game, and probably the most important game that I can see in the remainder of the calendar. They have to even that series, and they have to play way better than they did the last time these teams matched up. So, I mean, I can definitely see a 6-2 finish out of this schedule.
That's
that's
probably much more reasonable. I mean,
Yep.
I was saying, I gave this same spiel to my coworker the other day. And after I finished, I said, what'll probably happen is, there'll be a game or two where the Packers drop one, probably in a game that they're expected to win, and they just don't show up and they drop one. The San Francisco game, to me, looks like one. San Francisco's starting to get healthy again. Christian McCaffrey's back, so they're not as low on the totem pole as they were a couple of weeks ago. And obviously, that, like you said, that Lions game, that's probably the biggest game of the season. Obviously, the first matchup was still a big game, but this second matchup, because it's a division game and Packers have already dropped 2 division matchups, that's going to be the biggest one of the season for sure.
Yeah, and if we figure they get 6 out of the last 8 games, that puts them at a 12-5 record. That's a playoff performance. You're going to make the playoffs with that record. You probably make the playoffs with 11. I don't know if 10 does it. I mean,
yeah, it's a tough year to make the playoffs with a just barely over 500 record.
Right, because you look at the NFC East, they got the Eagles and the Commanders who are charging. You look at the North, which is going to have at least 2 teams, if not 3. I do think that Minnesota starts to squander here a little bit in the second half of the season. But then on the NFC West side of things, that's kind of a little bit of an open door too. You assume that the Niners are going to get healthy and play better, but Cardinals have looked okay the last couple of weeks. Seattle can be competitive. And then what's the last team in that division that's probably really good that I'm forgetting about? The Rams. Yeah, I don't care about the Rams. They're good. They're okay, but they're not going to make the playoffs. But yeah, there's competition all over the NFC. So I think you got to at least hit 10. 10 probably gets you a 6th or 7th seed, maybe that 7th seed, but 11 would definitely clinch it. So they got to find 5 more victories in the last 8 weeks. That seems pretty doable. They're set up well, I guess is what we're trying to get at least what I'm trying to get at. It's a lot easier path than they were last year to make the playoffs. And once you're in, it's anybody's game at that point.
Yeah. It doesn't seeding, I don't think matters, especially this year, even compared to a couple of years ago. The NFC is so stacked with competitive teams that I don't know if it doesn't matter if you're a 7 seed, a 6 seed, a 1 seed, a 2 seed. I don't think it matters. I think any team in the NFC could lose to any other team at any time.
Back-to-back NFC conference champions lost in their did not make the Super Bowl. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's what team's playing right. And then football is just a fickle sport like that. One thing can go wrong, little butt fumble action, and it's all game over. On the off season.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the Bears game.
Bears week
is one of the more enjoyable weeks if you're a Packers fan and a Bears fan. If you're a Bears fan watching this, hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below. We love you all the same. No, actually, that reminds me. Detroit fans, I like Detroit fans. You know, they're nice. They're great people.
When you texted me and sent me that one comment, I started going through all those comments on our TikTok. I was like, what is happening? Like, we had the Vikings matchup, and all these Vikings fans are just being just dicks. And the Bears or the Lions fans were like, oh, I like your opinion. I think the Lions are going to win, but you guys are okay. Like,
yeah, it's like, okay, there we go. That was kind of like Lions fans thought that they were going to lose the game, and Packers fans thought that they were going to lose. Like, nobody thought I think we were all mentally preparing ourselves for whatever would happen that game. But yeah, we're going to figure out this next week. We'll see how these Bears fans react on TikTok and whatnot, but
that won't go well.
So far, the Lions fans are front runners for another fan base of the year. So congratulations. There will not be a prize. So let's head over to the Bears week. So the last 10 years, the Packers are 16-2 against the Chicago Bears. We all know the famous Aaron Rodgers wearing the belt, I own you, all that good stuff. The last time the Bears beat the Packers came in December of 2018, and that was 2 weeks after Mike McCarthy got fired as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. That was just a bad season. We finished third in the division. Chicago was 12-4. They went on and won the division. But that's the old Bears. That's the old Packers. Specifically looking at this matchup, the Bears are coming off 3 straight losses. A once 4-2 team that was in the discussion of this is, the NFC North's a great division, a tough division, and the Bears were included in that conversation. They've slowly slipped away, losing 3 games. Washington, which is a tough matchup, but they had that was their game to win. They lost that on Hail Mary. Arizona, and then New England was the most recent loss. But it's maybe, to sum it up, the Bears still suck. I'm just going to say the Bears still suck. They did go ahead and they fired their offensive coordinator on Tuesday morning. They moved on from Shane Waldron after only 9 games of being the offensive coordinator in Chicago. And there are some rumblings about Matt Eberflus being on the chopping block as well. I'd like to maybe get in that topic a little bit more if time allows. But Caleb Williams in the last 2 games specifically, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, which is good. Actually, it's the last 3 games, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 18 sacks. So,
the entire Bears offense, not just Caleb Williams, the entire Bears offense hasn't scored a touchdown in 2 weeks. I mean, it makes sense. Makes sense. They fired their offensive coordinator. No touchdowns in 2 weeks.
One of the big complaints about Caleb Williams coming out of college, with all of his glory that came with him, was that he had a tendency of holding on to the ball too long. And we're seeing that this early in his career. Now that is definitely correctable, fixable. I think Caleb Williams is a quarterback that has talent. I don't know if he has any more, any less talent than Justin Fields. The verdict's still out for me on that one, but he does have talent. He can make great throws. He has a great arm. He can throw the ball down the field. He has that ability. But they're coming into this Packers game, new offensive coordinator, a lot of drama, but this is their Super Bowl, right? This is like, they could be 1-14, and if they're playing the Packers, you know that every player in that team is going to give their 100% like ability to try and beat Green Bay. So that's the one thing we have to look out for potentially in this matchup. But what are your thoughts on the Chicago team headed into this game?
I mean, I think you know my thoughts about this Chicago team.
Have you picked them once this year to win a game?
I don't think so. I don't think that I have.
All right.
Well, and to be fair, You talked about Caleb Williams. I agree. He does have talent, and they have had a couple of games where this Bears offense has gotten hot. They have a lot of weapons. They got Caleb Williams, who has talent. They got DJ Moore. Keenan Allen was one of their free agency pickups this year. He has not really done a whole lot. I think he's kind of past his prime. He's an older receiver in the league. So he's kind of been irrelevant. He hasn't been a standout on their offense. But then DeAndre Swift, the running back they picked up he was previously with the Eagles. Yep. So yeah, they have some weapons on offense. And then their defense has been playing fairly well. They do allow 322 yards a game, but they've only allowed 14 touchdowns, and they're averaging to opponents 18.7 points per game. That's pretty low. So we talked about it early in the season. A couple of these wins that the Bears had, their offense did nothing, and the defense scored touchdowns and basically won the game for them. If I have anything good to say about this Bears team, is they got a decent defense. That's for sure.
Well, it's one nice thing that we can say about them. What else can we say that's so scary? I guess I'm not too concerned about this matchup. Yes, the Bears are going to be giving it everything they have. It's at Soldier Field. This should be a game that Green Bay can easily take care of because Chicago is just not playing well. They have not figured out their offense. I think with the new offensive coordinator, sometimes that can create a spark and give you a boost victory here and there. But I just don't really. I think there's more underlying problems with this very young team that it's going to take them a season, the rest of the season, and maybe half of next season to really try and figure out what they have. When it comes to Eberflus, I've spoken to some Bears fans. They're not a big fan of the guy. I am not. I think he's an okay dude. I mean, I think he's an okay coach. I think he's a good coach. But this is a tough league, and you went through a Justin Fields era without having any results, and now you're staring down the barrel of a rocky stretch with this Caleb Williams era. He's got to find a way to string some wins together, and I think if they can beat the Packers, that probably buys him another year. Truthfully, I do. I think if he gets swept by Green Bay, they could lose to Green Bay, win a couple more games, and lose to Green Bay again. I still think Eberflus would be out because that's the most important thing for that Chicago fan base and the owners is that we got to beat the Green Bay Packers. But I think he's an okay coach, and I guess if I wanted to say anything on the topic, I don't think they should be hitting that panic alarm quite yet on their head coach and changing the entire infrastructure of this organization. This was expected. This is normal for a young quarterback to come in, and there's going to be ebbs and flows. You can't just. My best advice for Chicago: just don't hit the panic button. Do not hit the panic button. They can't.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that it'd be the wrong move to hit the panic button and start firing coaches and benching guys and stuff like that, because everything else around Caleb Williams is a recipe for success. Right? They put all these weapons around him. They put the defense is playing well, but he is a rookie quarterback. He's a young guy. And you talked about how throughout college, he held the ball a little too long, but that's fixable. He's been sacked 38 times this year. It's kind of hard to get an offense going when you've been sacked 38 times. So I think some offensive line reworking is probably in their future. But yeah, I agree. I don't think they need to hit the panic button. We kind of expected it to be a down year for them because they were jumping into this rookie quarterback, this first pick overall in the draft this year. In the future, if Caleb Williams can fix some of those issues, this NFC North starts to look more like the first, 6 weeks of the season this year where everyone's like, is every team in the NFC North going to make the playoffs? Because they all look good. So I think that's in the near future. If Caleb Williams can humble himself a little bit and fix some of these issues that have come up.
Well, we have discussed with Jordan Love this season coming off of that huge contract and maybe feeling some of that pressure of needing to do more than he needs to do to live up to that contract, and kind of got out of his own headspace. The amount of pressure that Williams has felt this season, I mean, number one, like he didn't even have to be a football fan to not see him in some sort of pre-draft commercial about the next star of the NFL. He comes to Chicago and the guy is trying. Like as much as I'm not a big fan of painted fingernails and stuff like that, I think I've said this in the past. I like the guy. I think he's a good guy. You just got to let him marinate, grow. And I don't know what the conversations are like in the organization, but if it's all outside noise at this point that, the sky is falling and really inside the building that it's, hey, trust the process. Let's get better every single day. That's going to make a world of difference for his future and his career. Don't get me wrong. I'd be fine if the Bears were terrible for the rest of our lifetime. But on the same side of the coin, it's really it's tough to see them take the approach that we have to start over. Take the Jets approach. Let's fire our head coach. Let's sign Devontae Adams. Let's throw everything that we can at this, when reality just needs to set in that it's going to take a little bit of time. Trust the process.
Yeah.
And they'll figure it out. Maybe they'll figure it out, or they won't.
I think it's going to, with Caleb Williams, it comes down to, is he going to be humble enough to trust the process and develop and fix these issues? If he goes at it thinking he doesn't need to fix anything, it's everyone else's fault but his own, then it'll crash and burn. But if he's willing to accept that he has parts of his game that he needs to fix for them to be successful, then I think he develops and becomes a good quarterback for the Bears, and they become more successful. It comes down to his attitude, honestly.
You see that clip of Williams on the bench looking at like his coach was saying something to him and he was like eye rolling, like, what the hell? I think his coach was like laughing and is like, dude, we're getting our asses kicked. Like, what are we?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Gee, you brought this up a couple times. And just to refresh those who might not have caught an earlier episode, do you think Caleb Williams has like a humility problem, or he's not a humble person? Do you think he has just this super ego, or have you maybe seen a little bit more in the last few months to change your viewpoint on that?
I haven't really paid much attention to it, honestly. And I know you said that they were on Hard Knocks, and that's where you kind of grew to respect Williams a little bit more. So I have not gone and done that. There hasn't been as much drama and fireworks as I expected there to be. So I guess that does change my perspective a little bit. I expected it to be a lot of, the Bears losing and him basically saying, it's not my fault. I'm the best player on this team. It's everyone else's fault. That's what I expected to see at the beginning of the season. And I haven't seen that. So yeah, my perspective has changed a little bit. Not maybe as much as yours has, because you've seen more of him, the Hard Knocks, and through paying closer attention to it. But yeah, I'd say my opinion has changed slightly.
Let's get to keys to victory. Is there really one area that
I'll start?
Is there really one area that the Packers need to make sure they capture? Let's see what you have to say. I do have one.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is one specific area that I think the Packers need to excel in to, I guess, it doesn't necessarily determine if they're going to win the game or not, because I think there's a lot of ways they can win this game. But to make this game a dominant win, I'm gonna back up a little bit. There's a couple of places where I think the Packers can take advantage. We talked a little bit about the Bears defense. In what I've looked at, their rushing or their run defense is worse than their pass defense. They allow, so total yards per game, they're allowing 322. Of that 322, they're allowing 133 rushing yards per game. That's 24th in the NFL. Passing yards, they're only allowing 190 yards per game, which is 7th in the NFL as far as defense rankings go. So where the Packers can take advantage, running the ball. I think this is a big Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd game. If Marshawn Lloyd is active, you touched on it a little bit. He came off of IR. We've been excited to see him. And then I did see something throughout the bye week, just a little tidbit about how Josh Jacobs has wanted to keep Lloyd locked in on football. Jacobs makes him ride to the practice facility with him every day, kind of took him under his wing. So if Lloyd is healthy and good to go, I do think we see a decent amount of him against the Bears. And I hope he runs wild. I hope Jacobs runs wild. I hope Lloyd runs wild. I want to see a big rushing attack from the Packers this week. It's not my key to victory. My key to victory.
Holy cow, that wasn't your key to victory? That whole dissertation? Hold on. Oh, there's a lot to unpack real quick. You think Lloyd is going to play on Sunday? You think he's going to be active?
I don't know. I think it's a little too early to know for sure, but that's why I say if he is active, I do think we see a decent amount of him because he's been, like I said, Jacobs has taken him under his wing. I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to get back out there. And I think even with him being on IR for so long, he's still the number 2 back. I don't think Emmanuel Wilson beat him out necessarily.
He's been quiet.
So, yeah, he has. So yeah, I think if Lloyd is active, if Lloyd plays, I hope we see a lot of him, and I hope he runs all over the place.
So let's get to our keys to victory, Christian.
Well, I was gonna run through that stuff back when we were talking about the Bears defense and the matchup and stuff like that. So I wanted to hit on that because I think it's important. I think this.
You think the fact that the Bears have been kind of playing from behind though in a lot of extents, that's maybe why those rush yards.
Why there's more rushing yards. Yeah. That definitely plays a factor for sure. But I mean, we kind of would expect that to be the case this game as well, right?
We would.
I would hope so.
I would hope so. Yeah.
But to my key to victory, I'm going with the pass rush. We talked about Caleb Williams' kind of Achilles heel has been holding the ball a little bit too long. He's been sacked 38 times this year. I think the Packers defense needs to get after him. They need to get sacks. They need to get hurries on him, and that's going to create turnovers. That's the most important thing. Make him scramble, make him nervous in that pocket, and it's going to be a breeze of a game for the Packers.
I 100% agree. I do have a different one. That was one that I was thinking of picking, was the pass rush. A couple things there, because we haven't really seen it, right? That's maybe one of the defensive's, blind spots, as we talked about blind spots this episode, is that they've been struggling to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. We didn't even talk about the release of Preston Smith, but that his lack of production probably has a lot to do with the Packers being okay, moving on from him. We're going to have to see some other people step up. Rashawn Gary's been quiet. So yeah, I agree. If they can definitely get to the quarterback, get to Caleb Williams, and that pass rush is elite, it's not even going to be a game. I mean, it's clear as day it will not be a game. My key to victory is converting in the red zone is my key to victory. So this is a big thing that we need to see the Packers improve on this upcoming week and really improve on in the second half of the season. Packers are ranked 29th in the NFL in their red zone scoring with 47%, but they're ranked 9th in getting to the red zone. So they're finding themselves being able to move the ball down the field, but the drives are stalling when they get there, and they're either settling for field goals or, heaven forbid, they're turning over the football. So this is what I think that, or at least I hope they wins the bye week. They saw it. They want to address it. They have to be able to convert in the red zone and figure that piece of this offense out. They're going to have success and make a deep, deep run into the postseason. So that's where I'm at. If they can convert touchdowns, get some points when they make it down to that side of the field, not only does Green Bay get off to a quick start or jump out early, then they can focus on that run game and they can really kind of just dominate the rest of the way forward. So please, let's get our red zone offense figured out. That's my key to victory.
I think that's been one of my most frustrating points of the season so far is the lack of conversion in the red zone. It's been all season long. And thinking about it now, if they don't have this issue converting in the red zone and they do score touchdowns more often than not when they get to the red zone, I feel like our attitude towards this team is completely different. You know, we've had our question marks. We've had our, I don't know, this team's kind of struggling. They're having some issues. They're making mistakes. If they had been converting in the red zone consistently throughout this season, I think we have a completely different opinion. I think we're, got our eyes on the Lombardi Trophy even at this point in the season. It's a completely different season if they had been converting in the red zone. So yes, that definitely has to happen this week and every week from here on out.
Those score predictions is next. Let's wrap up the score predictions, wrap up the episode, head on over to overtime. Sunday's forecast is calling for 59 degrees and cloudy. So not a whole lot of precipitation. Yep, it's good football weather right there.
Yeah.
Green Bay is currently opening as 6.5-point favorites. I have not even wrapped my mind around what I think the final score will be. But if we're going off of past trends, and yes, I'll just go first. Chicago's been struggling to obviously get into the end zone the last couple of weeks. Maybe they get a little bit of a tick, a little boost with the fact that they're playing their rival and it's their Super Bowl on Sunday. I can see them putting up 13 points, a touchdown, a couple field goals, but Green Bay has to run away at this one. So I'm going to say 28-13 is my final score. Packers go to 7-3 on the season.
Yeah, it's very, very close to what was on my mind. I'll go, let's see here. Trying to decide if I want to go a little bit more offensive production or a little bit less, right?
Okay,
I will say
take your time.
Packers 31, Bears 17.
31-17. The old Nariah Chappick playbook of 17 for a score prediction. Good on ya. Well, that will wrap up this 50-minute episode, a little bit longer than normal, but we covered a lot of topics. So on that note,
well, we had a bye week to cover. We're really talking 2 weeks ago and this week.
We condensed 2 episodes into 1 episode. That's impressive right there. Well, let's kick it over to overtime. We're going to talk about, if you have not checked out an overtime episode, we go over power rankings, we go over schedule predictions, we go over news topics throughout the week. Maybe we'll get into the old Preston Smith debacle, the trade prediction that Nariah knew was going to happen back in August when asked that question. And we're going to put on the victory shirts. Oh,
not yet. Not yet.
All right.
Next week.
Well, until next time, we'll see you on overtime, or we will see you on the internet. Thanks for watching. Go Pack Go.